1968 to, got it. Okay, 1968 to 1973. Welcome everyone. Bonjour.
Hello,
Anin.
Kimberly.
Hi. So we have a couple people here today that we didn't have before. We have Rolina Redner. And Rolina, would you mind introducing yourself and give us a little background? She's my special guest.
Hi.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
I know. I'm Rolina Redner, and my relationship to this whole thing is that my sister is Tico Rabadou, or used to be. We lost her some few years back, and Joaquin, Wehana, and Lorinda and Baby Forrest are my nephews and nieces. And
well,
yeah, and so Leonard is like his family, and
yeah,
that's, so I have like a direct connection to everything. I went on a trail of broken treaties, and that the Wounded Knee, and to you name it. I was the fishing camps, any of it was pretty much there if I could be, you know.
Oh, so you are suffering with Leonard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
It's such a pleasure and such an honor to have you here this evening, and thank you for joining us. It's such a short notice. I spoke with her nephew Joaquin, who is Steve Robideau, earlier, and he says, hey, just an hour ago I talked her into coming and joining us. And then in addition to that, we have Maya and Osha. They are friends, and I met them on TikTok, both of them. They're a wonderful couple, and it's welcome to our book club. Thank you for being here. And the rest of us, I think we know each other. Let me see. Oh, okay, just a second. I need to send Deborah the Zoom login. So if you guys would just bear with me one moment. Okay, so chapter 2, it starts out by talking about, just a moment. I am going to send this to Deborah and then we'll get going. Chapter 2 starts out talking about, in 1962 is where it began. And it talks about Clyde Belcourt and Eddie Benton Benai, and how they were organizing the education for the inmates in prison. And if I could just, if you guys would just bear with me for a moment, I'd just like to talk a little bit about like my history, kind of to give you a perspective, and anyone's welcome to join in. But my family, just to give you some background, my great grandfather was in Indian boarding school, and his mother was actually sent to a hospital for insane Indians, because when her children were taken, she was very distraught, and she died at 46 years old from a frontal lobe lobotomy. And, yeah, and so I get a little emotional when I talk about it, but I feel like I need to, because in order to honor my ancestors and to help them heal, that's why I do a lot of what I do. And it's a process though, so if I get a little teary. But so then my grandmother, she went to Indian boarding school, and I asked her, Grandma, what did you learn there as a very young child? She told me laundry. And so when it came time for her children to where they were going to be taken to Indian boarding school, she used the relocation program, and she moved to California to what, I guess, for lack of a better word, the ghetto. And that's kind of how I lost my language, my culture, my ceremony, my traditions. And so I can kind of see like this is 62 is a little bit before I was born, but like how important it probably was, even as they call it urban natives, I believe is how they refer to them, like people that weren't from the reservation, but how important and how much had been taken from them, and that desire, I can really relate to that desire to want to reconnect. And so it's when they start talking about how, and I can honestly say that the American Indian movement, I saw a change in my father, and like, and a pride in who he was, you know, and reconnecting that way. And I've been trying to honor that. So it's this chapter is important to me because of
I like how
because
they say it's not a social justice movement because there never was any room in society for natives.
right.
It is something apart from
Yeah.
you know, the black-white thing and equality and civil rights. Natives never had any rights. You know, I think it's interesting that the whole thing started in prison. You know, they dumped everybody into the slums. And you know, this chapter talks about Steve Bellecourt trying to protect people from the police, from beatings. You know, it was a regular thing. Let's go beat up the drunk Indians. And
Right.
how he was beaten for that. But the recidivism rate was 3 times that of whites. The prison population was 30 to 40% native. Population was 6%. You know, and Kim and I were talking about how the prison industry is the largest growth industry in the United States. They do not like safety nets. They want you in prison where they can make money off of you.
And the disparity between the races that are in prison and
Exactly.
it's just a money making, like, it's sad.
Yeah. At one point, they were offering parole officers pay hikes to violate their parolees and send them back to prison. Because there is so much money to be made, especially now that prisons are going private. But even the federal penitentiaries, the telephone is a racket, commissary is a racket, everything is a racket.
I have one thing to add. When my ex-husband and I were here in Washington working for the state of Washington, they were still sending kids that they'd turn 18 and at that point they couldn't go on to another foster care home. So they were shipping them to the prison over in Tacoma, the minors, and my ex-husband and I both worked there. Instead of delivering him to jail, we took him to another Indian licensed foster home, which was considered kidnapping. And at that time, the governor's office, regional office, everybody got excited and wanted to know what we were doing and what our demands were. And we told them we wanted protection for these kids are not criminals. They're being sent to prison and they're not criminals. We want protection for them.
Just because they aged out of foster care, they were being sent to prison?
Yeah, and then at that point, this is where how the Indian child welfare got created was by our action.
Yeah.
So that law came into being.
What time period was this for, Elena?
It was after Wounded Knee.
So
after
1973.
Yeah, I was gonna say 73 or 4, right? And then the Indian Child Welfare Act, that is so important, especially on the heels of the 60s scoop and like to protect the children. And it's crazy that in Texas that and a couple other states that they are trying to repeal that law before the Supreme Court.
Something real quick. I'd like to say something about that, sis, actually. So first of all, let me say it's an honor. It's an honor to be here, to be among great people, right? But there's an organization in Montana, right? If you look them up, they're CERA. And if you look through their homepage, there's a newsletter, and you should read that newsletter because they have attached themselves to these lawsuits, right? Because what they're trying to do, their goal is all like the stuff that our forefathers did for AIM, right? They're trying to repeal all that shit, all that stuff. Sorry, they're trying to repeal all that stuff. You know what I mean?
You said CDRA?
Yeah, CERA.
CERA. Okay, I'm putting that in chat.
Like cat.
He is in Charlie.
Okay.
E is in Echo. R is in Robert. A is in asshole.
Thank you.
But if you guys look into them, right, and they're a big concern because they pose a huge threat to us. Because if they and obviously you guys already know this, if they strike down Wikuwa on a constitutional level, a federal level, then the 10 states that have that protection, they're going to be challenged. And then what happens to the federally recognized tribes and all that work that our brothers and our sisters did for us? They're
Exactly.
going to sovereignty.
Thank
right?
you for bringing that up. I'll be looking into it.
Yeah, I will too. So,
I'm a
yeah,
maniac on Twitter.
so, does anybody else, oh, I wanted to talk, I thought it was funny how they called themselves originally the CIA, the Concerned Indians of Concerned Indian Americans. That didn't go over well though. So it talks, I'm doing all the talking here. You guys can feel free to cut in, but so it talked to like some of the things that really like stood out for me in this chapter was Leonard, how his family up and moved in the middle of the night because they feared retaliation because the white, remember the part I'm talking about? Where he had gotten in some rock fight with the kid and he threw a rock back and hit the boy. And then his mother or his grandmother, she didn't speak English very well. And so she was like, the woman pulls up in a new car and he said to him that was like, that must be somebody, important or to fear. And that she threatened to have them all, the children arrested or taken away. And so that was such a legitimate fear for him.
It was a
He
legitimate
moved
fear.
in the other middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
at that
great.
point in time, we were sterilizing Indian women against their will. I mean, the great shame of our nation is what we have done and what we are still doing to our indigenous population.
Yeah.
And people don't know about it. People don't know that the largest mass execution in the United States, Abraham Lincoln ordered.
Yep.
That 38 plus 2 that were hung because they were stealing eggs. The settlers were saying, let them eat grass.
Yeah, let them eat grass as they're starving on.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. They decided
the Trail of Broken Treaties. You were there.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That was amazing because we had a meeting here and there were lots of the leaders there. There was Sid Mills and different ones. It would take me forever to try to remember because I have a hard time remembering. But the meeting that I attended took place down at Frank's Landing in Nisqually, down in by Olympia.
For the fishing rights, correct?
Yeah, and everyone, I think one of the Belcourt brothers was there. There were several leaders there, and they decided that that to bring attention to the treaties and having not any of them being honored, and it was coming election time, that it would be a good time to go ahead and take action, and how to involve all the natives we could get word to, and how the best way was to do that. And so at that time they decided to to create what do you call point from Seattle, a point from San Francisco, and a point from Los Angeles to travel east, and one cover all the north, one covers central, and one covers the southern states. And while traveling across by car, we would stop on reservations and big cities every night and make speeches and recruit all the people we could recruit. And everywhere we stopped, it was good work. People came. They just joined right there. We told them we'd pay for your gas. We'll find a way. Just come along. And so we hit as many reservations and cities, urban areas that we could, and it turned into something. It worked. It was awesome.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Was the Trail of Broken Treaties, was it Alcatraz that happened first or the Trail of Broken Treaties? I think I'm off on my timeline a little.
Trail of Broken Treaties.
Okay,
And we took 3 months, gave us 3 months to get there before elections. And we met, all 3 trails met in Minneapolis before we went as a group, as a whole, over to DC. And Allison Godfredson Bridges and I and her sister Suzette Mills, we went ahead of the group to go set up some housing and meet with the churches and try to gain our footing over there before all the people rolled into town. It was great.
okay. And then in the book, he refers to about how one of the churches, there were rats and there wasn't a good place for the elders.
Yeah,
Is that correct? And so they went to ask the Bureau for better like to house the elders, and they were told that the Bureau is not in the business of housing.
This is
So right
correct,
out the
and
gate.
that's how
There's
the
a lot
Bureau
of
happened.
corruption
Was
within the BIA.
when we arrived at the churches, there were rats the size of cats knocking over garbage cans in the alley.
So right out
And
the
that's
gate,
how we,
you guys were
yeah.
not respected and not received well.
So we
Correct.
landed at the Bureau right away, right? That's how it got, that's where the decision was made right then and there, that they told us they weren't gonna help, so it was taken over right then and there.
Good for
Yeah.
you. Good for you.
Yeah, and at that point, it turned into what it turned into, and then comes along what we gonna do. Well, we made a 20-point proposal to them, and I couldn't tell you what's on it now because it's been so long, but having been there was quite an honor and a great learning experience.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for doing that.
I mean, for being a trailblazer.
Yay. It
Yes.
was great. Yeah.
And we're still fighting. It's something I noticed in that chapter. There was a white woman talking, they had little Indian bloods that they were ashamed of. And she said before the American Indian movement came along, you didn't see Indians anywhere.
Mhm.
They just
Yeah.
kind of, she says, I guess we overlooked them.
Yeah.
You just refuse to acknowledge that the custodians of this nation exist, and we're still doing that.
Yeah.
The book talks about the new fashion in racism is to deny the existence of Indians.
Yep.
Indians are gone.
In their backyard, right?
Yeah.
It's funny
Or
because
buried above boarding schools.
it's funny on TikTok, a girl made a thing. She goes, really, can somebody, if you're a Native American or American Indian, can you just let me know, because where are they? I'm worried about them. And so there's about 1,000 or 2,000 videos of people going, we're still here. It's funny. There's like,
Yeah, I
we're here
was
if you ever
talking
went
to my
anywhere.
psychiatrist. He's black. It's like that genocide by bloodline thing. They're trying to
Yeah.
say you don't exist once your blood has been watered down past a certain point. But with black people, it's the opposite. If you have a drop of black blood, you're black.
Isn't that crazy?
I looked at him, I says, we're all black.
Right.
I mean,
I wanted
I
to say
have
something
one-
real quick about that, like that whole thing, like from the beginning to right now, right? I got a big mouth, first of all. Listen, there's a lot of this is still going on today. You know what I mean?
oh yeah.
And it went on so many years ago to our ancestors, right? I was adopted when I was 3 years old, and I've been doing a lot of research, and I found my family just very recently, right? And then I found out like who my family was. And so I started, like, my family, they were They were somebody's, you know what I mean? So I found this treaty that that one of my ancestors was a part of, right? And he said this, and to save a tribe, right? To save this tribe from like the government taking that property, they were trying to take it because they were a bunch of half-breeds, right? And
Yeah.
you know, one of my ancestors, he was like, we don't do that. We don't throw people away like that. You know what I mean? Creator put them here for a
Exactly.
reason, right? But they tried to do that even then, right? In 19, all the way 2022, and they're still doing it. They're fighting us on Wikuwa. They put us in prisons. You know what I'm saying? They tear the family apart. That's what the United States government has always done to us, and for one reason only, man, for the resources in this land.
Yep,
Exactly.
There's a
for
reason
the
that
for
we,
the
that we
raping of our
did.
sacred, blessed Mother Earth.
They are still trying to pay the Dakota and Lakota for the Black Hills.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
you
I
don't
see
trade
that.
dollars for sacred ground. It's like $400 billion. No.
Nope, you can't. Yeah.
Oh,
That's a whole
Jackie
other
said
thing. When we talk
something
about that,
Jackie said something about the word Sioux being a bastardization of a French word for cutthroat.
you're right.
So is Sioux not a word that I should use?
From my understanding, no, you shouldn't use it. Yeah.
Okay.
Just like
okay.
I am a Chippewa. They'll call me Chippewa, and that's what my tribe is actually. It's a Little Shell Chippewa, but I prefer to be called. Well, other Native people would call me Ojibwe, which means puckered moccasin,
Yeah.
and I would call
Well,
myself
I was saying
Anishinaabe.
Leonard was Dakota Sioux, but now I'm saying he's Dakota.
Right, right. It is. It's kind of one of those names. Remember how we talked about last time how they just like. I think we'll call them.
Yeah,
we'll call them
you're
Chippewa.
gonna be that name. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like okay, like that's crazy. So it's so with the Trail of Broken Treaties, I recognize that after that they said AIM became like that got that bad reputation of being a extremist group, and when it really Dennis Banks' friend Jojo was telling me that it initially started out kind of just as let people know that they were there, and like a spiritual movement, a social justice movement.
Yeah.
And it's they just kind of like it's shameful to like you said, for the resources to this day. I mean, all of it, like the uranium on Pine Ridge, they're coming in for, because that's what they use in nuclear power plants.
Leonard is in prison. That
Yep,
is the
uranium.
only reason.
Yep. And well, we'll get to that part in another chapter,
Yeah.
but this whole thing was like the whole COINTELPRO and the counterintelligence program for the FBI had, which was, it was like so illegal. It was a leftover from that J. Edgar Hoover administration, where they would just literally tap people, set them up, spread rumors, like break every law that they could. And even presidents, I understand, feared that. So at this point in time where we are in the book, they're taking their eyes off.
It's still happening. They are still backing down presidents.
Right. Obviously, or Leonard wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And but they're turning their attention on from the Black Panthers to the American Indian movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he went on to talk about how, I think it was in 1972 that he was they had just returned from the BIA takeover, and that he was in a restaurant with some friends. I'm not sure what state he was in, but there were two cops there that were kind of mad dogging him, and he was like we could probably take these guys. And then he said to him, "What are you looking at?" And next thing you know, it's two plain clothes cops moving in on him with, I can't remember what kind of gun he said they had. And so it's like they beat the crap out of him, and they found what was the gun? He had like some kind of a Beretta that was broken. So then they charged him with attempted murder. It's like, and then of course we all later on in the book we'll find out that was just all a setup. So really they were just taking their attention and just like, let's just ruin this movement. Let's do everything we can just to.
Yeah, the internal memos are all out there about doing anything and everything they could to discredit AIM, either discredit them or kill them or put them in prison, one or the other.
Yeah. So the treaty rights, let's talk about that. And the Indian Appropriation Act of 1871. So we all know about the Fort Laramie Treaty. Does everyone know about that, right?
Oh, yes.
So the Fort Laramie Treaty, I hope I'm saying it right, but it said everything north of west of the 13 colonies, as long as the grass is green and the water flows, will belong to the native people, to the American Indian. And
Until
when
we
I say
change our
American,
minds.
and I say American Indian because that's what my family says, and that's what is the legalese that is recognized in the treaty language. So I say I'm little shall till I die, but I'm American Indian till free. So if I know a lot of people these days, they like to argue over, what do you think about that, Rolina? Do you mind being called an American Indian, or what is your preference?
When people ask me where I am or where I come from, I always tell them I'm Aboriginal.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
I just kind of basically,
Indigenous.
yeah, indigenous also. I
Yeah,
use that
indigenous.
word too.
Yeah.
Because I try to stay away from the word American for myself, but that's
Yeah.
just a personal preference.
Bravo. And
I do not blame you a bit.
the worst part I thought about the whole entire thing with the BIA takeover is that then they immediately withdrew the funds for the educational schools. It's like, let's punish them, like let's take away their funding and anything good that they're trying to do. And
I still can't get over the kids aging out of foster care went straight to prison.
yeah,
I mean, I see that a lot. I used to take AA meetings into juvenile hall.
yeah.
First crime is usually running from placement. Nobody asks them why they ran. Like, I'm being raped or whatever. But I did not know that happened with Native children.
So it was funny because I had forgot about the Rougarou, and he mentions it a little bit in this chapter.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The Rougarou, and I went like, my skin went, oh, not the Rougarou.
My dog thinks there's one in the backyard.
Yeah. And I thought that was pretty interesting. But does anybody else want to add anything? Because I've been yakking this whole time. Deborah?
Yeah, as I listen to you guys, I just get my blood boils. I just get angry because
every time I pick up this book, I get mad.
yes, the first time I read it, every time, and not having any verifiable connection to indigenous people other than my children, and a love for them all of my life. I'm so angry at the government, the people. The people in power. They're evil, and how it pits one side against the other. It doesn't matter. They pit the different tribal nations against each other. They pit the whites against the indigenous peoples. They pit the whites against the black. It's to keep us confused and ignorant and divided. And according to the things that I believe in my faith, a house divided cannot stand. And so that's one of their number one tactics is intimidation and dissemination of false information. And it just infuriates me because
Conquer and
so
divide.
on different sides of the issue that when they begin to get a more holistic picture, they're not on a side. They want right. They want justice. They want things fixed. And they're many of the white people that I know are ashamed that those things happened and that they never knew it. And how can we, they're defensive because it's like, I didn't do that and I would never do that. And I understand that. And I want to see things changed by getting accurate information out there without the condemnation.
Exactly.
And I believe that
the FBI paid somebody $40,000 to get on the stand and tell vicious lies about Leonard which is still
Mm.
being parroted by uninformed people. We need real information out there.
Right. If,
Yes.
I mean, it's so much time has passed that, like, regarding the events of Leonard, that's why I think it's really important for people to be reading this book, and that's why I'm always pushing it, because so much
Yes.
time has passed that, and Leonard said himself, he said, a lie is still putting on its boots a truth is still putting on its boots when a lie has run 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
You know, and so, like, that's why I think it's really important to nip it in the bud when you hear these lies, and to just tell the truth. And regarding like, people say I wasn't there and whatever, but there really are systems of oppression that have been put in place since the inception of America, and
Yes.
people are still benefiting from that. So
even
so-
if they
Yeah.
weren't there, they're still reaping the benefits now. That's like out.
Maya's got something to say.
yeah, I want to hear Maya. I was like, is Maya talking? Hi, Maya.
I was talking back here, sorry. No, yeah, that people, whether they were present and had firsthand, to do with the oppression of our people, right? They're still benefiting from that structure that's in place. So, we hear
We
that,
keep our mouths shut, we are complicit,
right?
period.
You're right.
Yeah, that's what
I
doesn't
agree.
Here's the whole thing.
That's
I'm
what
not-
doesn't do
Right?
Tuesday.
Like, one thing that you got to take into consideration is how they continue to do it. Once again, we started with the penal system, right? Obviously, I'm familiar with the penal system.
Not
Clearly.
obvious, but whatever.
But the point is, right, is like, with Mr. Peltier, Rolina, I respect people like you. You know what I mean? You guys, I sit back for so many years and I thought about, like, I've been reading your guys' cases. I've been following, like, all the books. I've read all of Vine Deloria Jr.'s books, dude. And
Yes.
before I forget, I want to say one thing, man. There's one reason I watched this interview with Russell Means, and there is a reason that the United States government is doomed. It's destined to fail, and that's because it's fucking Indian law. Sorry, that's because it's Indian law, right?
Oh,
And
you're
they're not
fine.
doing it in the right way. You know what I'm saying? They're doing it the white people way. No disrespect to the
Exactly.
white populace, right? But I'm just saying they don't understand what Indian law is. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They know how to lie. They know how to deceive. They know how to
Yeah.
disenfranchise people and create these projects, right? Housing
Yeah.
projects and shit like that, so that we can rely on them and continue to rely on them, right? And they understood what Mr. Peltier and those brothers that fought with you is that if we destroy them and we crush them, right? And Mr. Peltier is more than just a political prisoner. He's a symbol to us all. Make a move and see what
He
happens.
is a symbol of the great shame of this nation.
And he
It's the turn of the
embodies,
century
Yep.
issue, the last of his tribe. They exterminated his tribe like they were rats.
and he embodies a struggle that symbolizes the American Indian struggle. But
Yeah,
he's the embodiment of that, and it just, and he's a punished for the whole entire COINTELPRO, and is still a leftover of that bygone era, and we need to get him out. I'll
yeah.
start advocating about him. Like,
But
Definitely.
at the turn of the century, he said, the white man's clever, but he's not wise. And that's what you were talking about, Deb, is natives understand that we're all part of a whole.
yeah,
The
holistic,
all my
yeah.
relations concept, two-legged, four-legged, wing, growing, water. I've got three-legged, I've got a tripod dog. You can't damage one part of that and not have it reverberate on the rest. We
Yeah.
cannot fill our water with poison and junk plastic and not expect to wipe ourselves out. If I had children, I'd be terrified.
I am
Yeah,
terrified.
the white thing is worshiping this invisible guy flying around in a white nightgown and destroying the visible miracle that we live with and on.
Yep.
Sister, Rolina, I wanted to tell you something, man. Maya and I, we went to Alcatraz not too long ago, right? And like, you could, first of all, I just want to let you know, man, we could feel the essence of everything that was there. Listen, I'm not a man that's prone to cry at all, right?
Yeah.
But I could feel it, man. I could feel it in my chest. Like even now, just talking about it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Lena, were you at Alcatraz?
No, I was too young.
Isn't it
They're
but that,
interesting
still
though?
doing it.
the point of it still exists though. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The point of taking Alcatraz is still existent to this very day. And if you've ever been to Indian country, you can see it. You can see it anywhere you go. You know what I mean? Like there's a
Yeah.
reason that they keep our mental health. They don't provide quality mental health. Why IHS ain't worth a crap, right? And the reason is because if they don't treat us and they allow us to continue, you know, through substance abuse, domestic violence issues, you know, just issues in general with the legal system in any way, shape, or form, right? Then they can keep their foot on our necks.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They can continue to take our sovereignty one right at a time as they've been doing. They can have
Yeah.
the water is on the NASDAQ. They trade water like a commodity now.
Are you
Exactly.
serious?
We
I'm
are
dead serious.
losing our, do you know who's
It's on
using our
NASDAQ as a
water?
commodity?
Look
We
it
are
up.
selling
I believe
land
you.
to people in
Being-
Arabia that are growing
Yeah.
food to feed our food. That's what's
Oh.
happening to our water.
Also, the corporate people like Coca-Cola they'll go into a county in any state and they'll lease land at the courthouse without telling anybody who they are. I guess apparently there's no watchdogs to see what goes on in the courthouse.
Yeah,
They lease the land, they'll go into the county wherever they lease and they'll suck up the whole water table
Yeah.
and leave whole counties dry.
yeah.
They
Our
never
water's
to have water
disappearing.
again.
You
Yeah.
know, to make one of those 6-ounce little bottles for bottled water, it takes
Yeah.
almost 2 gallons of water.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
Laredo, Texas, the citizens actually voted to outlaw plastic bags. Because first it takes all the water to make them. Then the refinery process, that's where the autism and cancer spikes are around petrochemical plants.
Mhm. Wow.
Then they go straight into the water, most of them. People throw them into recycling, they're not recyclable. So we ship them over to, it used to be China. China finally banned junk plastic because the refinery process to recycle it seriously poisons the air. Now we send it to Malaysia. Malaysia banned it, but it still gets through. So we still send it there. But when ships are turned back, you think they're gonna take all that junk plastic back to America without being paid? They just dump it straight into the ocean.
Yep.
So it smothers
crazy.
marine life, seahorses, octopuses, fish. Sea turtles mistake it for prey and eat it. So it blocks their stomachs and they starve to death.
Wow.
And so plastic is poisoning the planet in 4 different areas. And when Laredo voted to outlaw plastic bags, the petrochemical industry went in and sued using a 4 decades old law made to help out alcohol manufacturers to overturn the ban. So citizens don't even have a voice. The
It's
country's
never
being
ending.
run by corporate interests and by the DOJ.
That's part of what I was trying to express a while ago, that it's really an elite group who are in power. And I used to kind of, look at things that talked along those lines as radical and unreasonable, but more time and more study have opened my eyes to a lot of things. And there are a number of different factions or groups of people that are coming to an awareness of an elite group of people that are trying to control us by keeping us ignorant and divided and
Yes.
disseminating misinformation. And it may be true that the lie runs 1,000 miles before truth gets on her boots, but when she's got her boots on, she can stomp the snot out of them
Yeah.
people.
Mhm.
You just
Yeah.
have to understand.
Bravo.
I
have
found
to
a way
continue.
around the character limit on Twitter. I'm screenshotting a whole bunch of stuff and putting it out with little comments. That
Very good.
FBI dick pic went out.
Yeah, I
on
saw that.
Twitter.
We were talking about the FBI before we logged on, and she was telling about how they're still up to their things today.
One of
But
their
I was-
agents went to a supervisor to complain about being sexually harassed. He sent her a picture of a rainbow dildo sticking out of his pants.
Yeah, nice.
That's how the FBI conducts business.
So real quickly, I wanted to circle back to the proclamation that they made regarding Alcatraz and how he compared it to a reservation, and it still, as OSHA said, remains the same today. And I just wanted to read it. It said it's isolated from modern facilities and without adequate means of transportation. It has no fresh running water. It has inadequate sanitation facilities. There are no oil or mineral rights. There's no industry, so unemployment is very great. And there are no healthcare facilities. The soil is rocky and unproductive, and the land does not support game. There are no educational facilities, and the population has always exceeded the land base. Sounds just like a reservation. Did you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's like, what
You
a,
missed the last line of that, Kim. Let me see if I can find it.
oh, okay. And yeah, I guess I did. I had screenshotted this. Screenshotted a word. But
You go ahead, I'll find it.
so it was kind of like about it being symbolic that ships from all over the world would first see Indian land.
Yeah, further,
Yeah.
it would be fitting and symbolic that ships from all over the world entering the Golden Gate would first see Indian land and thus be reminded of the true history of this nation. This tiny island would be a symbol of the great lands once ruled by free and noble Indians.
Yeah. So I mean that, and as OSHA said, it still remains the same today. I don't know how many of you have actually been on a reservation, but it is shameful. Like in the Navajo, the Dene, they don't even have running water.
It's
Like
enforced poverty.
Yeah.
It's enforced poverty. Something that we would take us 4 steps to open a business on one side of a reservation. You move over 10 feet and there would be 49 pieces of bureaucracy to go through. We still treat people on reservations as though they were little kids that need to have their allowance handled. And
Yeah.
that's the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
There you go.
That's where that corruption lies. We need sovereignty. Did you see that the redwoods in Northern California, the state forest, were just turned back over to the tribes that they
Yes.
belong to?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Now the Black
awesome.
Hills.
yeah. And that land back, people, land back.
I say all the national forests too. All the national parks need to go back.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do. Australia
do.
did that with its Aboriginals. We need to do that.
And that's
Yeah.
what it all, I mean, can you imagine the change that it would be in protecting our Mother Earth? A lot of people have the argument that land back literally means land back, but with that would come, I believe, a more caring
Custodianship.
for our mother.
Yeah,
more respect for- and-
custodianship.
And as an Anishinaabe, it would be like, we consider it's the 7th generation. You look forward 7 generations and you're a caretaker for them. And so if
Yeah.
we could just, because in the short period of time that America has been here on Turtle Island, look at the destruction. It's like, can people not open their eyes and see this?
We have destroyed our planet.
I mean, what are we
Lena,
gonna
did you
do?
know the people at Wounded Knee?
Yeah.
Pedro Crow Dog adopted me into his Lakota tribe.
He
Pedro
is
and
Dakota.
The
Leonard
baby that was
Kodak's
born
son.
on Wounded Knee.
I was there when he was born.
Were you really?
I was in there.
His
I
wife
haven't-
Balda was gonna be here tonight. Pedro zigged when he should have zagged. He's kind of running amok right now, but wow, you were there when he was born.
Well, yeah, and I haven't seen him since. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I met him at a Greyhound bus station. He adopted me and my dog Tasha both into his Lakota tribe.
She says that she was
Wonderful.
adopted,
Bologna
but
sandwiches and a bag of potato chips.
back to
uh,
back to the whole blood quantum thing. She is Lakota, even though she said she was adopted. She is Lakota. She's a Lakota woman. I don't
I've got a
enforce blood
Lakota
quantum. It's
woman
not
in
allowed
my
at this book
lineage, I
club.
do.
Sorry, it's not
10
allowed
years
here.
ago, I say I've got a little Lakota blood.
You are a Lakota woman, so. But Catherine, did you want to add anything? You're being awful quiet tonight.
Yeah, it's because I still got this cold and congestion from being sick. So I've been trying to not talk too much because I didn't want to start coughing. But I do agree with the fact that whatever happened, did they just totally abolish the AIM organization and the BIA took over? And there's
No,
no,
AIM is
no,
more
no.
of-
anymore?
AIM, we are considering AIM a verb now instead of a noun. It is
It's-
a way of life. It is a social justice movement.
Okay, if I could read Leonard's statement on that, I would
Okay.
really appreciate that. Because when I asked him,
fantastic.
if you give me a moment though, it's I'd like to read that because when I asked him what AIM was, I have a response here, but if you just give me a second to find it. I'm not, I guess, very organized. And I'm used to having Jackie here and she's not here because she
You're
has
doing great,
COVID.
Jan.
And so
You're
I'll
doing great.
send prayers up for her and lay some tobacco down if you will. But
Just
let
real
me
quick
find-
while you look for that, sis, I was gonna say, I was gonna talk a little bit about the conditions on these reservations, right? Yeah, I think I muted it. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can
Yeah.
hear you.
I know, right? You know, there's something to be said about the fact that, you know, like you've already touched on the fact that there's the lack of running water on a multitude of reservations for one, right? And then the life expectancy on some of these reservations are less than 50 years.
Oh,
You know, I
yeah.
remember when Russell Means made that, was talking about that in front of Congress, right? And then nothing's changed.
Yeah, teen suicide rates are hideous.
Yeah, any
There's no hope.
statistic, every single negative statistic, right? We lead in from assault risk to, you know, getting locked up, MMI,
Yeah.
like our women, dude, our children, everything that can be done to us is being done to us, and it's
Yeah,
being done
around
at
the
a rate that the
pipelines,
United
there's a
States.
lot of human trafficking.
What's that?
Around the pipelines, there's a lot of human trafficking.
Yeah, yeah,
A
no
lot of
doubt.
women
Absolutely.
disappear.
And murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Did you
okay,
find
so
Leonard's statement?
yes, I would like to read it. I asked him what the American Indian Movement was, and he said AIM is not an organization. AIM, as its name clearly says, is a movement. Within movements, organizations come and go. No one person or special group of people runs AIM. Do not confuse AIM with any particular individual or individual who marches under its banner, however worthy or unworthy they may be. AIM is the people. AIM will be there when every one of us is living today is gone. AIM will raise new leaders in every generation. Crazy Horse belong to AIM. Oh, I get the chills. Sitting Bull belong to AIM. They belong to us still, and we belong to them. There are no followers in AIM. We are all leaders. We are each an army of one, working for the survival of our people and of the earth, our mother. This isn't rhetoric. This is commitment. This is who we are in the spirit of Crazy Horse. Leonard Peltier.
That man is so intelligent. And
So if
why?
that answers your question, Catherine, it's
Yes, you
movement.
answered my question because I was
Yeah.
wondering about that because not to take away from the book, but on Cold Case the other night, they had a missing Indigenous young woman and the family wanted answer and they kept asking the BIA to do things and they wouldn't do it. But because it's sovereign nation, the local sheriff on the other side of the reservation kept on and on and on investigating this missing young woman. And the BIA, they brought the cameras on the reservation to interview the people in charge of the investigation years ago on the BIA. Well, so mysteriously, all the investigators on the BIA that was investigating this missing young woman were transferred to other BIA headquarters,
Yeah.
so they couldn't be interviewed.
Yeah,
So this sheriff kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And they finally found the young woman's body outside of the reservation gates, and they were able to return her remains to her family. But
wow.
because it had been so long, they could not find out how she was murdered or what happened to her before she was found and buried. And
She was
I am
just
just
an
so
Indian.
grateful that detective outside of the reservation kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and finally was able to give that family peace to bring their daughter home.
That
And
isn't
her-
an isolated, I'm sorry, that isn't an isolated thing. There's the
No, it
missing,
is
murdered,
not.
and Indigenous and Two-Spirit movement, if you will. And there's thousands of cases, close to probably 5,000-6,000 cases like that. And they do have jurisdictional issues, which
Yes.
I understand Deb Haaland as the director or secretary to the Department of Interior, that
Mhm.
they're making new initiatives. So hopefully there'll be better investigations, but that all comes back again to the man camps and or oil and those men are along, you can probably, I don't know, somebody else could probably talk a little bit about that, but my understanding that there's man camps along where the pipelines are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of it is.
About it, right? With MMIW is the fact that the government doesn't do anything about it. Listen, they take a strategic step to make sure that MMIW is not addressed in any way, shape, or form, from media right down to law enforcement officials, right? I don't know whether it's law enforcement's involved in it. I don't know if it's because maybe the cartel's involved in it. They're too afraid to do anything about it, right? But the fact of the matter is, the man camps, dude, there's I-40 is like the legitimate artery through the United States of America for MMIW, for human trafficking. Maya and I, we live about 4 hours from the number 4 spot in the world for human trafficking, right?
Yeah.
And they know this. They had the statistics on this. When
I
that
can
one
tell
lady
you from
drove up, right?
experience, law enforcement is involved.
Well,
Probably.
look at what are they called? Starlight tours that they do up there. They take the men, the cops take the men, and then they beat them or leave them like without their clothes in the snow to walk home. And what are they? Is that Starlight tour or something they refer to it as?
I've never heard of it.
Okay, yeah, it's like the cops are involved with that too.
Yeah, I'd like to see
Well,
one of them roll up on me and try to give me up. Good luck.
Can I say something about that though?
Yes.
So make no mistake, right? Make no mistake that the BIA is complicit. It's complicit in missing and murdered indigenous women and girls, right? It's complicit
Absolutely.
with the disappearance of our Two-Spirit. It's complicit with the abuse of our children and the relocation of our children from indigenous homes to non-indigenous homes, right? And the reason that it's complicit is because the BIA is not, let's take it back to tradition, to history, to our ancestral practices, right? The BIA is not an indigenous concept. The BIA is an arm of the federal government.
Yes.
So whenever I have the opportunity to tell an indigenous sister, an indigenous brother, or talk to them about the Bureau of Indian Affairs, make no mistake, they are not our friend. They are not looking out for our best interests. They are legitimately a higher hand of the federal government.
Yep.
So
They are a branch of the.
I'm gonna go yell at somebody now. Thank
It looks like
you.
we're running out of time, but you guys, as always, this has been just
I will be on
really
Twitter
wonderful time.
tomorrow.
And so we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks, same time,
Rowena,
same
it was
login.
such an honor to meet you, my friend. Thank you so much for who you are and for coming tonight. And
Yeah,
I'm almost in tears.
Ocean, I
being
would
a
also like to
strong
extend our
woman,
gratitude for
definitely.
having us on.
What?
Well, I
My
hope you
goodness.
continue coming because we've enjoyed talking to y'all and
Oh, well,
hearing
thank
from
you.
y'all.
That's very
All of
kind
you,
of
all of
Thank
you are freaking fantastic. Each and every
I
one
have
of
a
you.
reminder because I forget so easy. I'll ask my girls to remind me to log on.
I'll remind you. I'll send Amy a thing because it was such a pleasure having you here and have your insight. And thank you. I'm honored that you came, and thank you so much.
Thank you because I have so much to say.
Yes. We want to hear it. So,
Yes,
will
we
be discussing-
do.
I want to
Will you
get
just-
to know you more, Rolina. I really
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
We'll be
Thank you,
discussing
everyone.
chapter
Thank you,
3.
Kimberly. And
sorry.
thank you, everyone. Thank you for,
I'm gonna
you know,
stop
stopping
recording
up
now
for-
because it's my zombie time and I need to go to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. I've got
Thank you,
serious
Deb.
food poisoning.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Maya.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Deb. I
guys.
love all of you.
Love
Love
all of
you.
you too, definitely.
And so next week though we'll be discussing Wounded Knee. So it's
Okay,
We'll be what?
no, 2 weeks. So
2 weeks.
We'll
we'll
be
be discussing
what?
chapter 3, Wounded Knee, February through May of 1973.
Oh, great. Okay, cool.
So,
Okay.
I was there the whole time.
yes,
All right. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
I'm
my
gonna make
friends.
sure you're there. You're gonna get a bunch of texts from me reminding you. Have
Yeah.
a good evening,
Okay, goodbye,
everyone.
my friends.
All right, all you too. We love all of you. Y'all have a good 2
Love
weeks.
you.
Yes.